A very good early evening to you on this Saturday evening. Premier League football is finished, I think. I know there's another game happening at the moment. Some interesting results. I think Bournemouth thrashed Nottingham Forest 5-0. Everton won. Arsenal, I think they won under some kind of controversy. I don't know. I haven't watched the any of the games. I've just seen some of the comments and results, etc. And of course, West Ham United go into their game against Aston Villa on Sunday. Now, I was going to do a preview, but I did that a few weeks ago. And I guess, the only real difference here that we have is that we know that Dinos Mavropanos is suspended for the game against Aston Villa. And so Graham Potter has got some decisions to make as to who he plays at the back. We may see Kalen Casey play in that position at the centre back. We know that Crescencio Somerville is almost definitely going to play. And there's a possibility that Jared Bowen might feature, but I think it might come a bit too soon at the game against Aston Villa for him. So I guess there's really not much more to say about that. And to be quite honest with you, I've got other things on my mind. And of course, it's about transfers. And I just wanted to do this video because I just feel as if we're if we're going through a bit of a phase at the moment of deja vu with transfers, and I'll explain why. If you're new to this channel, first time you're watching the West Ham Voice, please do consider becoming a subscriber of the channel. Costs nothing to subscribe and costs nothing to watch the content. And whether you're new or an existing subscriber or just someone that's just passing through and interested in this video, if you enjoy it, if you like the content, if you appreciate it, please do hit the like button when the video finishes. So as we drift into the final week of the transfer window, there's still no sign of any real business to be finalised by West Ham. Now, many fans were hoping for at least a couple of signings, with the faint hope that we may have gotten 3 players in essential positions, primarily another centre-back, a box-to-box midfielder, and a striker. Now, we all have our views as to which of those 3 positions are the most vital, which ones are the most essential. But if we end up doing no business in this transfer window, then how disappointed would we be? If we do find ourselves with no additions, then I dare say Graham Potter will do his best to make do with the players that he has at his disposal. And unlike previous managers and the previous head coach at West Ham, Potter doesn't seem to have any qualms in using our talent pool of academy players to fill any voids I've just mentioned. We've so far we've seen the likes of Ollie Scarles and Lewis Orford come into the senior lineup. Also, we've seen much more of Brazilian teenager Luis Guilherme being given more game time than he ever was under Julian Lopetegui. And as I've just mentioned a moment ago, when we face Aston Villa away on Sunday, we may well see Kalen Casey being given an opportunity to shine in central defence. But after being linked with more players than I care to remember in this particular transfer window, it's not much different to any other one. But yet again, we hear about more and more players that we're linked to. And given that our squad is not only short of bodies because of injuries, but also short of players because some are just simply not delivering or are just not up to the job, why have we yet to make any transfer signings in this window? Now, you can excuse the first few weeks of the transfer window because there was more going on with the sacking of Lopetegui, and so I guess the focus was on that rather than signing any players. Clearly, the last thing that West Ham were going to do was to allow Lopetegui to have any say in player recruitment when he was already on his way out of the club. And then one may also argue a further week was used up whilst West Ham were negotiating with Chelsea to allow Carl McCauley to move from his chief analyst role at Chelsea to come over to become head of recruitment at West Ham. But even whilst all that was going on, surely West Ham should have been busying themselves looking for players in the areas that I've mentioned. After all, Despite Tim Steiden and his brother Moritz leaving the club, Max Hahn, the data analyst, is still in his role. And the main part of his job, of course, is to be scouring the market for players which would suit West Ham, not only in their abilities, but also in terms of possible availability and price and so on. But yet, nothing. Now, we've been told repeatedly that there's no money to spend and that we're only likely to buy players if we could generate income by selling players. Now, despite the feeble attempt to offload Guilherme to Saudi and the loan move of Maxwell Cornet, she's woken up, Sushi, say hello to Sushi. Despite the feeble attempt to offload Guilherme to a Saudi club and the loan move of Maxwell Cornet to Genoa, no other players look like they're going to be leaving West Ham anytime soon. Now, the cancellation of Cornet's loan deal to Southampton and the subsequent move to Genoa may have set the club, West Ham United, may have set the club's finances back a little. At Southampton, we were paying all his wages, whereas at Genoa, we're having to pay a large bulk of his wages just so that the loan deal could happen in the first place. Now, Genoa do have some players on their books who are paid quite reasonable wages. Andre Pinamonti is on around 85,000 euros a week. Junior Messias is on around 71,000 euros a week. And Vitinha is on 64,000 euros a week. But then the salary scale drops significantly with a number of players on around 35,000 euros a week. And this is around the sort of figure that Genoa are likely to have wanted to pay for Cornet's services. Now, at West Ham, he was on around £70,000 a week, which is the equivalent to around 80,000 euros. And as I've said, Southampton were covering all of that. So at a guess, if Genoa were only willing to pay Cornet around 35,000 euros, it means that West Ham have had to take a hit of having to cover the remainder of his salary, which is around £40,000 a week, 45,000 euros a week. So I guess this is something that West Ham would not have anticipated. And I do wonder if it has had some impact on West Ham's transfer ambitions in this window. But I'm going to be honest with you, I'm only guessing, and it almost sounds as if I'm finding excuses for the board's inaction in this window, which I definitely am not. But like I said, apart from Guilherme and Cornet, there seems to be no sign of any other West Ham player leaving in this transfer window. Hence, West Ham looking at loan signings rather than looking to buy any players in this window alone. Now, hold on a minute. What happened to the 57 million we offered Aston Villa for John Duran? Well, let's unravel that for a second, shall we? Now, in all honesty, it wasn't a 57 million pound bid. It was around about 45 million pounds with around 12 to 17 million euros. 12 to 17 million pounds in unachievable add-ons. Okay, then. So if we didn't make a 57 million bid, then what about using the 45 million pounds that was offered for the player in the process? Well, simply put, David Sullivan made a bid that he knew Aston Villa would completely turn down. So he was safe in the knowledge that he was never going to have to find the 45 million pounds plus add-ons to fork out in the first place. You see, it's now come to light that Sullivan had been made aware that PSG had made a 62 million pound bid for the player, only for Aston Villa to turn that bid down. So the West Ham bid fell way short of any bid that Aston Villa would have been even remotely interested in. So why do it? Why put some bid in that you knew was going to be turned down? Well, we know that David Sullivan has form. He's got form in making low ball bids in previous years, hence the catchphrase that it's been assigned to him of the "we tried" is now associated with every Sullivan transfer deal, or the ones that fail, I should say. And this is what we now have once again at West Ham United. As soon as we were made aware that David Sullivan was yet again in charge of, in control of transfers, we just knew that these scenarios of offering low ball bids and stalling on transfer deals would result in West Ham not doing the business that they should, or losing out on players because of the slow pace of our handling transfer deals in the first place. Um, Now, indeed, we've had there aren't that many transfer deals that have been straightforward for West Ham. I'll give you an example of going back to 2017. Who remembers that deal when the president of Sporting Lisbon called Gold and Sullivan the Dildo Brothers after the fiasco of trying to get William Carvalho to West Ham United? Well, that reputation, or certainly Sullivan's reputation, since the passing away of David Gold, has never really recovered from that. And there is still airs of shadiness when Sullivan is involved in any transfer deal. But for a transfer fiasco to happen once in a transfer window is bad enough. However, when two transfer fiascos seem to have happened in the same week, it then becomes beyond a joke. And we started the week off with the £57 million bid for Duran that Sullivan knew was not going to be accepted. And we've ended the week with us not being able to agree a suitable deal to bring Brian Brobbey to West Ham United. Now, West Ham, as we all know, have made an offer, a loan offer for the player. Ajax want either a straight purchase of around £30 million, which can include add-ons, or they want a loan with an obligation to buy in the summer. It seems that West Ham yet again, or should I say David Sullivan yet again, is dragging his feet over this deal. We can't seem to find a way to agree a loan with obligation to buy, and we certainly don't seem to have the money to buy the player outright in this window. So now we've reached another stalemate. Now, from what felt as if there was a final breakthrough in transfer activity, we find ourselves beginning to accept the inevitable that perhaps we may not do any business in this transfer window at all. Yes, we still have a few irons in the fire, but with Sullivan at the helm, the feeling of deja vu is hard to avoid. Low ball bids, procrastinating, dragging our feet on deals just feels as if we've trodden down this transfer path many times before. Now, with Steiden gone and Macaulay barely a few days into his new role, one does wonder whether anything transfer related will happen. My understanding is we're still in to get at least a couple of loans. You know, Adam Webster of Brighton may well be on the cards. Maybe someone like Andre Silva. We keep being told that Andre Silva from Leipzig is a player that we will get in case nothing else materializes. Will that be enough? Adam Webster's all right, bit of a solid player, like we described in the show that I did last night with Gary. He's a bit of a Craig Dawson Mark II. So maybe, he'll fill a bit of a gap in defense. But if we don't get another midfielder and if we don't get a striker, how's the fan base going to feel? I don't know. It just feels quite frustrating, to be quite honest with you, that we've been here before and we seem to be back here again, where with David Sullivan, nothing's ever really clear cut when it comes to transfers. Will we buy a player? I'll be very, very surprised if we will. Will we loan a player or two? Quite possibly, but it will be at the death. Like I said, we're creeping our way into the last week of the transfer window, and it sounds as if West Ham United are yet again going to do their business right at the last moment. Frustrating? Yeah, absolutely. But I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what materializes. Short and sweet. Thank you for watching. Like I say, no preview of the game against Aston Villa, but do join me. I'm sure Wiggy, myself, and Paul will be doing a review of the game afterwards when we leave the Villa ground. So do join me for that. I hope I haven't ruined the rest of your Saturday, but who knows? Maybe we might we might be surprised and see a transfer deal happening right before our very eyes. Who knows? Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. And if you're new or existing, please do hit the like button on your way out.